older brother didn't want me to take the fight against Aldo. He was
Wow.
livid on the phone, like livid, livid, livid. When we found out he missed weight, he's like, forget it. He's saying F-bombs, like, we're not taking this. It was cool because I also had GSP in my corner. The first thing he said was, it's going to be the greatest thing that ever happened. It's so good for the story. He's like, people won't believe the story when it's over. They won't believe it. If you want to put value to your name, you have to win when the odds are really against you. You know, so like not only was I fighting one of the greatest of all time, but he also had an 8-pound advantage.
So today I'm joined by Canadian UFC bantamweight fighting out of TriStar, coming off an incredible win earlier this year against José Aldo. Aieman Zahabi, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, one thing that I wanted to ask you about, particularly about this José Aldo fight, is I know you started some mindset training, and I actually had the chance to speak a couple months ago with Mindset Mike, and
Yeah.
he told me great things about you. You're like his model student.
Nice. That's great to hear.
Yeah. He only
Yeah.
had great things to say about you. So for those that are listening and who may not know, Mindset Mike is a mindset coach for high-performing athletes and has worked with Zhang Wei Li, Kendall Rusing, Kai Stewart. So how did that connection with Mindset Mike come about for you?
Well, we have a mutual friend, and my friend helps manage or helps Kai from the bare knuckle fighting champion, and he helps him out with some stuff, get sponsors and things like that. And Kai was working with Mindset Mike, so that's how my friend got introduced to him. My friend Jordan got introduced to Mindset Mike, and he brought it to my attention. He's like, "Hey, why don't you get a mindset coach? You got a coach for everything else. Maybe this could help. Kai says a lot of good things about Mindset Mike. Maybe you could try it out." So I said, "Sure, why not?" So then he introduced me to Mindset Mike, and we hit it off, and I started working with him.
Okay, interesting. And so, what was the process like of having a mindset coach for the first time? And like, were there any kind of challenges or bumps in the road that you encountered in terms of like facing and what's the word I'm trying to think of? Being super introspective about your mindset and preparation for fighting.
Yeah, well, I was already super introspective, and like I read a lot. I was reading a lot of books like on self help and psychology and things. Because when I got KO'd against Ricardo Ramos in 2017, I had never lost before, and I'd never been KO'd or dropped or rocked ever. So like it all came in one shot, and it was like the biggest moment of my life at the time because the story I was telling myself going into the fight was like it's the first time me and GSP are fighting on the same card. GSP's coming back to fight for his belt at a higher weight class to become like a two-division champ, and I was the first fight of the night. So I kind of felt like it was a passing of the torch moment. Like George wasn't going to continue fighting after that, right? So I was like, I'm going to kick off the card. He's going to finish the card, and it's going to be like I'm the new face of UFC Canada. But in the end, I get knocked out. So it was like a lot of terrible emotions that came after, because I didn't know how I was going to recover. I didn't know if I was going to be chinny or not. And like the fear was kind of like eating me alive to get back in there. Plus, I had to do like this concussion protocol. It lasted like 18 months because it was a bad concussion. So I was searching for the answer in a lot of different books. And, I read a couple of books. One of them that really helped me was Psycho-Cybernetics. Another one was called The Tools, and then like a few other books that help. They all have their own little gems in there. And so when I started working with Mindset Mike, I felt like it was easy because I was already into that idea of like working on myself. And I wanted to become bulletproof, but not only bulletproof physically, but I want to be bulletproof mentally, because when you're undefeated, you have that bulletproof mindset. No one's ever beat you, right? So you feel indestructible. But then after the KO loss, I felt kind of like vulnerable. Like, oh wait, I can get KO'd too. And then when I fought against Vince Morales, I was kind of like a shell of myself. I thought I was ready, but when the cage door closed, I was like, oh, the anxiety started to build up, and every round was getting worse and worse for anxiety. So I ended up winning 4 in a row without Mindset Mike, and then I started working with him just before the Pedro Munoz fight. And one thing that's nice about working with Mike is that it's not a guessing game whether or not I'm going to show up mentally. Like I know I'm going to give it my best that night, whereas the other nights you don't know who's going to show up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. That's super interesting. And so if you could like kind of compare the feeling that you feel on fight week and actually walking into the cage now, working with Mindset Mike versus how you used to feel in terms of like anxiety level and just kind of like calmness of your mind. What would you
Yeah.
have to say about that kind of thing?
Well, I feel now when I walk in the cage, I feel like I used to almost like what I had before the fight, but before the loss, before my KO loss against Ramos, I had incredible confidence, and I couldn't wait for the fight to start. But I may have been getting a little bit more and more arrogant, and it's why I think that's why part of the reason why excuse me, is I got KO'd is because I was going so hard for the kill that I forgot all of my defense and I threw caution to the wind, and I was just attacking and I wasn't looking for him to answer back. Like I didn't, even if he answered back, I thought he couldn't hurt me. So I became too arrogant, which is now with Mike, I'm more just as confident as before I got the KO, but not so arrogant that I'm throwing caution to the wind either, right? So he's balanced me in terms of that. Like I keep my ego in check. I'm urgent. I'm excited. I can't wait to fight. I can't wait to trade. Like I couldn't wait for Aldo to get in the octagon. Honestly, it was the first time I was in a blue corner ever in an MMA fight, so I didn't know if I was gonna get iced out. Like an NFL kicker. Just sitting there waiting. Like what am I supposed to be doing? But I used it to like amp myself up and get excited. It's nice working with Mindset Mike, whereas I'm confident but not arrogant.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I also remember you talking about that fight week and how now fight week to you feels like a vacation, which I think
Yeah.
is such a special place to have reached because that really is how you should be feeling. You've trained and worked so hard for this moment. It should feel super exciting. And so I just think that's such an interesting way of describing it because obviously kind of on the outside when you're looking at, somebody going into a cage fight, it's like terrifying. So,
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's funny
yeah.
because it's an interesting. I can give you like a little interesting story. When I was doing my first fight in UFC, I was fighting like an Ultimate Fighter winner, and I was fighting them in Halifax. And my wife was coming out. A bunch of my friends were coming to watch the fight, of course. And my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, was coming to the fight. And she only arrived on fight day. And when she walked into the hotel room, it was like she told me after, she's like I felt like we're going to someone's funeral. Like everyone was quiet, everyone was like they can feel the tension in the room, like no one was saying anything. And this fight, when she came for the Aldo fight, my daughters and my wife and my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, they came to like the press conference and the weigh-ins and all that, and they were coming to my hotel room after, and everything was like happy and we're laughing, we're telling jokes, and the tension was completely gone. And my sister-in-law, she's like told me again, she's like, wow, what a difference between the first fight and now. It's like completely different. So I really feel like I've overcame a lot in terms of anxiety and stuff like that, and now it's like it's a joyous moment, and I can't wait to live that experience of the fight.
That's incredible. Wow. Yeah, that's such a funny comparison, especially hearing from somebody on the outside. I feel like you may not
Yeah.
be aware of it in the moment, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's super special. And so one thing that I've wondered about doing mindset training in general is how do you feel in your training? Like, do you feel like the mindset training, obviously it's a long-term process. You're doing it every day. You're building up these skills to be able to handle pressure and anxiety. And so how has that changed your mindset in training, if at all?
Well, what it's good for training is that it gives me a set of goals too that I have to achieve that I'm working towards, right? So it's like I'm always have focused training, right? So I'm not just going there and doing whatever. There's a goal, especially like when I have an opponent, it's definitely the goals are very defined. When I don't have an opponent, I'm working kind of like on my weaknesses and whatever, and there's things that I always need to improve, right? Because we all have holes in our game. But during training camp, I like it because like I'm trying to check those boxes in the practice room to make sure that I can achieve what I want to achieve on fight night. Like you want to go out there and have a great performance. And part of having that great performance is having the ability to adapt to your opponent's strengths and his weaknesses and things like that. So every day in the practice, it's just having mindset Mike. I check in with him once a week, and it's nice to just go over and making sure that I'm on the plan and I don't deviate by too much.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so I want to talk a little bit about what happened behind the scenes with the Aldo fight. I know that there
Yeah.
obviously because it was in Montreal.
Yeah.
When Aldo missed weight, he missed weight by 8 pounds. You had already cut weight, so then you had
Yeah.
to rehydrate to weigh in again to make the fight happen under the commission's rules. So tell us a little bit about what happened behind the scenes and what went into your decision to still take the fight, knowing that you'd cut weight and he was still 8 pounds overweight.
Yeah, well, it was awkward because me, I do what I do is I do bath and then like I do like a wrap, and I had just done my last bath, and we're in the wrap, and I was supposed to do like I think 30 minutes or something like that. And while I was in the wrap, they called my brother and they're like, "Hey, listen, they're like, hey, we gotta get Aieman to stop cutting weight." And my brother's like, "Why?" They're like, "Oh, Aldo was 145. He's not gonna lose any more weight." So for us, like, okay, he's like, "Aieman, stop cutting. Dry off, change your underwear because you know your underwear is soaking wet, so that's weight." Okay. So I put on a dry pair of underwear. I get on the scale. I'm 136.8. So like, if I would have finished the wrap, I'm there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my brother's like, okay. He's like, just relax. And I was upset. I was very emotional because I was drained. And I try not to get emotional during fight week at all. But I was so dehydrated, I couldn't help myself, you know? So I
Yeah.
was kind of upset about the whole thing. And my brother's like, just calm down. We'll come to a resolution. We'll talk to the UFC. We'll negotiate. We'll see what the options are. So I said, okay. And then they call us back. They're like, what do you want to do? This and that. I said, okay. I'm like, are you guys gonna offer me more money? Like, are we negotiating? And we're gonna, what are we gonna do? They're like, okay. So they gave us like a first offer, and the first offer we didn't like at all. So I kind of like was upset about the offer. I'm like, there's no way. And like that makes no sense. But especially it wasn't 1 or 2 pounds. Like 1 or 2 pounds, the original offer would have made sense. But like 8 pounds is crazy. Then they called us back. They're like, wait a second. They're like, actually, the fight's off because there's more than a 5 pound weight difference. Because in Montreal, there's that special rule where if there's a 5 pound disparity, you can't fight. So they said, look, Aieman has to gain weight, so we have to change the fight from 35 to 45. So I was like, oh man. So they sent me the guys from the UFC PI with like my shakes and stuff because they prepare you the shakes and the bagels and the bread and all that. So they brought that up to my room. So I started eating and drinking, and then I was talking it over. Like I even called my oldest brother on the speaker. So it was me, Mindset Mike, my manager, Firas, a couple of my training partners, and my nutritionist, and we're all trying to figure out what are the risks of the fight. Like what changes now that the weight is so different. And we came to the conclusion that the most dangerous thing about the fight now is can he absorb more than I can absorb? And then like Frost was bringing up a study how like in the military, what they do is they dehydrated their soldiers 2% to see how much performance declines. So when you dehydrate someone by 2%, they lose 6% in performance. So triple the amount of percentage of that you dehydrate, you lose in performance. We're talking about like strength, cardio, power output, all these different things go down. So I lost 8 pounds more than him. So how many more percent am I gonna perform below his performance? So it's not only absorbing but also on the offense. And then it's like, okay, but we're in Montreal, and I've never been so high up on a card, especially a pay-per-view card. What are the risks? What are the rewards? So for us, like, okay, he's like, forget calling them on the phone. Let's just go downstairs and negotiate with Sean Shelby in person. So we went downstairs and Frost spoke to Sean Shelby. They gave me an offer that I liked. And then I decided to do it because what am I going to do? Not take the fight. Everyone's coming from Montreal to watch me. My wife's coming for the first time in 5 years to watch me live. Got front row tickets. My brother, my sister-in-law, all my cousins, so many family and friends. And it's like you feel that kind of pressure too. You got to live up to the moment. And if you want to be remembered, you have to take risks. And if you want to put value to your name, you have to win when the odds are really against you. So like not only was I fighting one of the greatest of all time, but he also had an 8 pound advantage. He's a kind of guy who brutalizes you too. He's not a guy who just takes you down and hugs you. You know what I mean? He tries
Mm-hmm.
to kill you. And so we ended up saying, you know what, it's worth the risk. I'm also 37, right? So it's like, what am I gonna do? Not take the fight and try to cut weight 3 weeks later, or a month later, or 5 weeks later. Let me just take the fight and take the chance. And I felt like so good in my preparation. I felt really confident in the game plan and the strategy that we built that I can withstand the weight difference. And I feel like I proved it.
You totally proved it. And Just what a roller coaster that
Yeah.
whole situation. Honestly, like I can't imagine a more necessary time to have been doing mindset training than to like
Yeah.
take on such a José Aldo, who
Yeah.
we all know what he's capable of, and knowing you're disadvantaged. Wow,
Yeah, I felt
that's
really good. And like even though he was awkward and funny, but like before the fight, a lot of the fans, all the Montreal fans, even like people like relatives, were like, listen, we love Aldo, we like you, but we love Aldo. Please don't hurt him. But then as soon as they had a chance, the guy tried to rip my head off. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I want everyone to be either all on my side or you're not on my side from now on. You know what I mean? And it was cool because I also had GSP in my corner for that fight, and he wasn't a part of like the negotiations. It was like super early in the morning, so I didn't want to like bother George. But as soon as like we made the decision and the weigh-in was done, and I called him at like 9:30 in the morning, or whenever it was, I can't remember what time it was. The first thing he said was, "It's gonna be the greatest thing that ever happened. It's so good for the story." He's like, "People won't believe the story when it's over. They won't believe it." And then even like getting dropped in the fight, like it all added to the whole, excitement and build up. And like, I feel like you can't hate on me for beating Aldo, especially with the way everything played out. Like, you have to give me my credit.
Yeah, totally, totally. Wow, it's super special to have George say those things to you before the fight.
Yeah, it was
And he
great.
was
And it was,
right.
yeah, he was right. He was right. And also it was my biggest payday of my career. So it was really nice. So a big thank you to the UFC. The second offer when we went to see them downstairs was way better than the initial offer. And it was really good. And I'm really happy with the UFC too.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So I'm glad you brought up GSP because obviously a lot of people know your brother Firas as one of the greatest MMA coaches in history, but also for being GSP's coach, among many other incredible fighters. And
Yeah.
so you grew up in kind of an environment a little bit surrounded with martial arts and MMA. So what was it like growing up in that environment, and what was your introduction to martial arts like?
Well, my introduction was because when I was going to go to high school, my father didn't want me to get bullied. So he told my brothers that you got to take your brother to take him training and make sure he can defend himself when he goes to high school. When I was going to high school, I was only 5 foot tall. I was 130 pounds wet. I was so tiny. I didn't really, like get my height or my weight yet when I was going to seventh grade. So my father wanted me to make sure that I was protected from bullies. So my brother started training me, and it was really awkward at first at TriStar because nobody really wanted to train me because I was so tiny, and everyone was between the ages of like 20 to 30 at the time, and it was a very small group. So it was really I was just training mostly with Firas, and I saw all the great fighters there too. But like Firas was a lot of the time is my partner, the guy holding pads for me, the guy rolling, doing the technique with me, and then some of the other guys would roll with me, but they didn't love it. They were just doing it to like I guess maybe recover between matches with the other guys. But then I fell in love with it because I started to get really good, and because I was training so closely with Firas, I got really good a lot faster than a lot of the other guys. And then when Frost started becoming the coach and stopped fighting, and he would fly out all the time with these other fighters, I started teaching classes at TriStar like 16, 17. Then I was cornering pro UFC fighters by the time I was 18. Right. So I have a lot
Wow.
of like coaching experience, a lot of experience of seeing the best Canadian fighters, fight at the highest levels, how they all prepare, how they all lose weight. So I have a lot of what Frost calls, what they call in philosophy, indirect experience. So I've saved a lot of time and effort not doing things wrong because I've seen other guys do things right and wrong, right? So I've learned from their experiences, and I'm kind of like an amalgamation of them all.
Yeah. Wow, that's
Yeah,
super interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, I can't imagine a more perfect environment to be around, people to surround yourself with, one of the greatest of all times in
yeah,
GSP, to learn from him and to not have to make the mistakes that those people made yourself, to
yeah.
learn kind of just from experience. And so did you ever consider being anything other than a fighter?
Yeah, well, I was going to University of McGill for like accounting. Like I was really good at school. Like my oldest brother, he got a PhD, an MBA. Like he's very educated, and he ever since I was young, he was always pushing me to get a really good education. So I was on track to being an accountant. When I was going to university, like my grades were good. My first year was really good, and then during the second year, TriStar started really blowing up, and sometimes we would have two pro fighters fighting on the same weekend, one in UFC and one like local pro, right? So Frost was traveling with the bigger names, and I was traveling with the local names. And sometimes the local guys were fighting local, but not like in Montreal, but like in Canada, but not a big league like UFC. So I would travel with them. So I was traveling like once or two times a month. So my grades started dipping, and I was like 21. And I told Frost, I'm like, listen, how about I do this, man? How about I go pro? I'm coaching all these pros. You know what I mean? Like, and I was even training with Miguel Torres, who was like WC world champion, and I was part of his coaching team, his training partner. And I was like, man, I can do this with these guys. I'm like, how about this? How about I try to make it in the UFC? If I don't make it by the time I'm 30, I'll go back and get my degree. So I was like, okay, let's do it. So and I ended up getting into the UFC at 29.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was nice. The bet paid off.
Totally, totally.
Yeah.
What did your older brother think about that?
Um, well, I told them like school's easy. My whole thing was it's always gonna be there.
Right.
Universities aren't just gonna close down, right? They're not gonna close down. And I only have my youth once. Like when I get older, I can always hit the books. Like you can hit the books forever, you
Totally.
know? But I can't be a pro fighter forever. The window is much shorter. So that's kind of how I explained it. And so they gave me their blessing, and it's like, like the Lebanese culture, we're big on hierarchy, right? So if they didn't give me their blessing, like there's no way I'm going pro, right? And they're also
Right.
my support system. So yeah, no, so they all backed me. But see, like my older brother didn't want me to take the fight against Aldo. He was
Wow.
livid on the phone, like livid, livid, livid. Not originally, like obviously when I got the name at first, yes, but when we found out he missed weight, he's like, forget it. He's saying F bombs, like, we're not taking this. He's like freaking out. It's too risky, it's too dangerous, because a striker, right? Fighting the striker versus fighting a guy who just grapples you, it's a
Yeah.
different level of danger. And he was with me in New York when I got my concussion, right? So, like, he's seen that. But for us, didn't get emotional, but he was telling me, like, look, it's still super risky. He wasn't sure if I should take it or not. But in the end, I got to make the choice myself. And then whatever I decide, we got to go with it. What's funny is there was a great quote that I heard one time. I'm going to butcher it, but the worst thing you could do is be undecisive. You know, it's better to
Yeah.
just make a choice and live with it. Whatever that choice is, whatever happens, it's going to lead you to another choice. Then you make the next choice, and then you make the next choice. You can't live your life being undecisive and being afraid. You have to make decisions when the option comes, and then you live with that choice, and then you'll make the next decision with the information you have. You just got to keep moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really great advice. Also, sorry, when you started training martial arts, was it kind of like MMA in as a whole, or did you start like with jiu-jitsu and striking
Yeah.
classes?
So I started jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai at the same time, but they were separate at TriStar back then. So they had
Hmm.
like jiu-jitsu, then they had boxing, they had kickboxing, and there wasn't really an MMA class. So what the guys were doing was they trained jiu-jitsu and then they would do boxing or kickboxing, right? And then we didn't have a coach who does MMA who can put it all together. That ended up being Firas, eventually.
Right.
It ended
Okay.
up being Firas. But like our jiu-jitsu coach was only a jiu-jitsu coach. Our kickboxing was only kickboxing. So yeah, I was doing them separately, but my first love was Muay Thai. I loved Muay Thai way more than jiu-jitsu. And I think partially it was because my short size, my lightweight didn't matter as much because it's like we're drilling on each other like Dutch style. So it didn't matter that I was smaller. I was able to hold the mitts for the guys. So like I felt like they didn't hate it so much training with me at the time. It didn't bother them as much. Whereas in jiu-jitsu, like I was way too small for this like 25-year-olds, who are going to compete in jiu-jitsu, and they got to train with this like 13-year-old kid. Like it didn't make sense for them, and I get it. Like they're competitors; they weren't just doing it for hobby. Like the hobbyists, of course, like they didn't mind training with me at all. But the competitive guys, like I wanted to train with them, but I totally understand now looking back.
Right. That makes sense. And so if you had to choose only one martial art to do for the rest of your life, Let's say
Yeah,
like it's an alternate reality. You could only choose one of them.
yeah.
Which martial art are you choosing?
Muay Thai probably.
Wow,
Muay Thai,
okay.
yeah, I love Muay Thai.
Wow. Okay, interesting, interesting.
Yeah.
And so nowadays, what does a typical week look like for you in terms of like structure of training, like MMA classes, striking specific classes, jiu-jitsu classes?
Oh, so I train every day. Every so I spar 3 times a week: Monday, Tuesday, Friday, in the mornings, and every evening we do jiu-jitsu and wrestling. And I do my conditioning 3 times a week, and it's usually after the second practice. Yeah,
Okay,
so that's kind of what
interesting.
it looks like. Yeah, and then on Saturdays I only train once, and Sundays completely off.
Okay, and in terms of sparring, like how does Firas approach like sparring, hard sparring, big gloves, little gloves, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so let's say Monday we do light sparring. It's with the smaller gloves, so we don't really hit for real. We hit maybe like, I don't know, 30%, something like that. Like not enough to hurt each other. And in that we do, like, obviously it's excuse me, MMA. It's not just striking. So when we put the small gloves on, we're wrestling, we're grappling, and sometimes we'll even do like MMA situations. So we'll start against the fence, or we'll start in half guard, and we'll mix it up on that day. Like, well, not every round, but we'll add one or a couple of rounds of like situational MMA. And then on Tuesdays, we do big glove sparring. So that one we're going harder. And that one it's usually shorter rounds. So we do like 3 minute rounds on Tuesday, and on Friday we do the 5 minute rounds. So Friday it's like MMA. Tuesday it's also MMA but shorter, 3 minutes. Yeah,
Okay, interesting. And so
yeah,
outside of training, do you do any kind of like tape study, watching other fighters for inspiration and obviously for, looking out for who you want to fight in the future and that kind of thing?
yeah. No, I definitely am always watching tape. I like to watch like fighters that I feel like I could emulate or imitate or take things off, because like it's nice to have favorites, but I don't have the genetics of a lot of these guys, so I can't copy a lot of their moves. Like, I know GSP's double leg every detail. I know all his guard passes every detail, but I don't pass like him, and I don't shoot like him because I don't have his physicality or his abilities, right? So I watch a lot of the fighters I like to imitate. Some of them are in boxing, some of them are in jiu-jitsu, and yeah, that's how I study tape. And then when I have a fight, I'm watching my opponent all the time, and I try to find his little nuances, their quirks, and where they're weak and where they're strong, and I try to plan for them.
Okay, interesting. You
Yeah.
mentioned jiu-jitsu there. Have you been following like the world of no-gi jiu-jitsu these days? You've got like CJI, ADCC, UFC, BJJ.
No, I haven't watched too much. I like my some of my friends are pretty good. Like, Ethan Crelinson is out there. He's competing hard. Oliver Taza. I'm friends with Gary Tonin and some of the guys from the Gordon Ryan, Nicky Ryan, all those guys. I used to train with them a lot back in New York. When they have matches, I watch. But if it's not my teammates, I don't usually watch too much.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, no, but it's super cool to be seeing UFC investing a ton in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I'm hoping it
Yeah.
really kicks off for the jiu-jitsu guys. Those guys, hopefully they can make some money too.
Yeah, totally, totally. And so what do you like to do outside of MMA, outside of training and fighting altogether?
Yeah, well, I mean, I spend a lot of time with my daughters for sure. Okay, I like to take them swimming. I like playing tennis with them. I'm trying to get them to like play. I like tennis as a hobby because it's like anywhere we travel, if we go on vacation, it's easy to bring just a few rackets, and then like we can always play tennis like from now till forever. And so I like playing that, and I like sometimes we play video games together. Like we have Mario Kart battles and things like that. So it's cool. Like, yeah, so I like to hang out with my wife and kids most of the time. That's mostly my hobby. Just doing activities with them.
Awesome. Love the Mario Kart
Yeah.
Kart whole thing. I love that. Yeah, yeah, I have a lot of fun with Mario Kart. And so, who do you have any fight news coming up? Anyone that you've targeted for your next fight?
Well, after my last fight, I call out Chito Vera. Obviously, I have nothing against him. I think he's like number 7, and I'm number 11, so it'll be like a nice step up. He's a big name. I feel like stylistically, we'll make a really good fight. So I'm hoping that I get matched up with him. It could be October 18th. I don't know. I haven't received any calls yet for that, but they're coming back to Vancouver, so I'm hoping that they're considering me for that card. But yeah, we'll see, man. I'm excited. I haven't heard anything since the last fight.
Okay, you know what's super funny is I used to have a painting of Cheeto Vera up there behind me. So,
Oh, really?
yeah,
Big
which would have
Cheeto
been
fan, huh?
funny. I am, yes,
That's
yes.
great. That's
But,
okay.
I won't ask what the people asked you about Aldo. I won't
Yeah.
ask you to, go
I'm not
easy on
carrying
him. I
anybody. There's
understand.
no way we're carrying anybody.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see you on that Vancouver card. I'm actually based in Vancouver, so I
Oh,
will be
nice.
there. Yeah, I hope we get some good fights for that card.
Yeah, that'd be great. And let me know if I am on the card and you're there, if you want to do an interview that week, I would love to help
Totally.
out. Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, that would be great. That would be super fun. So before we finish up, I always like to ask everyone if you had to give one piece of advice to someone that wants to pursue, follow in your footsteps, be a professional MMA fighter, what
Yeah.
advice would you give them?
Yeah. The most important thing is to have a good ecosystem. Your family, your friends, the wife you choose. If they don't believe in your dream, you need to change those people. So like if the people around you aren't helping you, not supporting you, not pushing you up, you gotta change the people around you, or you gotta move, or you gotta do something like that because you'll never make it to the UFC alone. It's the people that are around you that help you get there. Because you can't pay the value that the people around you give you with dollars. There's no amount of money you can pay your wife, your brothers, your best friends, your best training partners, your coaches for the devotion at the time they spend. They spend so much time beyond the money you can give them. Okay, especially when you're starting off, you make nothing. You make nothing. We're
Mhm.
poor. And don't be afraid to be poor for long. The longer you're poor, the more chance you're going to be able to keep the money you make. Okay, because it
Interesting.
takes a lot of discipline to stay in the game. So treat the people around you really well and hope that they treat you well because if you don't have a good team and a good surrounding, it's gonna be hell. It's gonna be hell.
Yeah,
So
no, that's super important. Super important and
yeah,
great advice.
thank you.
Yeah. All right, so is there anything that I've missed that you want to mention? Any sponsors to shout out or anything before we finish up?
No, it's all good. I just wanted, if anybody's interested in learning from Firas, check out jujiclub.com. You can buy his DVDs online, and they're great instructionals. Is what we train at TriStar.
All right, awesome. Well,
Awesome.
thank you so much. It was super great chatting with you today. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. It's great to be interviewed by you. Thank you.
All right, thank you.